So just this last Sunday, the final Generation 7 Pokemon, Zeraora, was revealed to be the guest star of Pokemon the 21st movie alongside Lugia, to the surprise of almost nobody. And originally, I was just gonna make a video where I said, "Good morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR," and it turns out that Zeraora exists. And that's it, that's all the video would have been. But then I started thinking, is this even news anymore? I mean, it probably is to most people who don't use the internet or never leave their basements, but it really made me think. There is a big issue developing with these mythical Pokemon that needs to be fixed before Pokemon for the Switch comes out. In this video essay, I'll be covering the rise, fall, and purpose of mythical Pokemon, and how we just might be able to fix them. The first mythical Pokemon in the franchise is the 151st Pokemon, Mew. Mew was truly mythical in every sense of the word, not just in the game universe, but also in the real world. Very few people knew about Mew, and all kinds of misinformation spread regarding its existence, with most people believing that Mew resided underneath a random truck in Vermilion City. However, the truth was almost that ridiculous. Mew could only be caught by activating a glitch in the game, making it something that most people would probably never get unless they were willing to restart their entire games. It was quite literally the mystery of Mew that may have saved the Pokemon franchise in the first place. In Pokemon Gold and Silver, Celebi was introduced as the second mythical Pokemon in the series. Although Celebi wasn't nearly as painful for players to get, there was a catch. Celebi was only given to Japanese players of Pokemon Crystal, and sure, that may have been incredibly unfair to Western audiences, but at least it kept the mystery of mythical Pokemon alive. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire introduced two mythical Pokemon in Jirachi and Deoxys. Jirachi had almost no role in the Generation 3 games, and at this point it was becoming tradition for the Pokemon anime movies to explain the backstories for the mythical Pokemon. And for Jirachi, that was alright. Jirachi was just a cute little creature that granted people's wishes. There wasn't much more to understand. However, similar to Mew, many rumors also surrounded Deoxys, with many players claiming that Deoxys could only be caught by taking a rocket ship to the moon once it reached a 100% success rate. Of course, this was just mindless speculation, and like Jirachi, Deoxys was distributed to players who went to specific real-world events. Wi-Fi didn't exist in the Pokemon games at the time, so this was the only way to get a Pokemon through distribution, making Jirachi and Deoxys still relatively rare Pokemon for most people to own. Now we reach Generation 4, where mythical Pokemon arguably reached their peak. Yes, this may have been the generation where Wi-Fi distributions became extremely common, but these distribution events were still handled incredibly well. All three mythical Pokemon had an in-game event to trigger. Darkrai could be caught by taking a fairy to New Moon Island and battling it in a forest, Shaman could be caught by uncovering the secret of the White Rock on Route 224, and Arceus... well, actually, Arceus was unfortunately just a regular distribution, but there was an unused event regarding the Azure Flute and Spear Pillar programmed into the game that could be activated by using Action Replay. Arceus, however, did get its own in-game event in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, where it could give birth to a member of the Creation Trio. Generation 5 was also a pretty solid time for mythical Pokemon. Victini was the first mythical Pokemon of Generation 5, which the player had to catch after unlocking a special event through distribution. Admittedly, this was probably my favorite of the mythical Pokemon side quests, as it did an excellent job of explaining the lore of Victini, as well as provide a decent challenge for the beginning of the Black and White games. Although the other three mythical Pokemon in Generation 5 were sadly just given out as gifts instead of having to be caught by the player, they still unlocked side quests in the games relating to their signature moves. Like Victini, these events also did a decent job at explaining the backstories of Keldeo, Meloetta, and Genesect. However, it is inevitably where mythical Pokemon started going downhill, as all the mystery of mythical Pokemon started being drained away. This is also where all the skill of catching mythical Pokemon was removed, since these Pokemon are just given away. Pokemon X and Y only made the situation worse. Like the final three Generation 5 Mythicals, Diancie, Hoopa, and Volcanion were all just given to the player via Wi-Fi distribution. No catching, no special side quests, nothing. If anything, an NPC would pop in and briefly explain the Pokemon's abilities, and that was about it. In my opinion, Volcanion is the worst of these offenders, as there was tons of potential to give Volcanion an event in the locked steam power plant on Kalos Route 13. But alas, that was nothing but a tease. In addition, Volcanion had no form change or special item. There was really nothing that made Volcanion special besides just being rare. As a whole, the only good thing that Generation 6 did for mythical Pokemon was making Deoxys part of the post-game plot in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. And finally, we get to Generation 7, where the mythical situation has never been worse. Magearna is easily the most forgettable mythical Pokemon of all time due to its awkward time of release. Yes, Victini was also released at the beginning of a generation, but at least it had a memorable event, and its movie didn't feel bogged down by its existence and actually integrated it quite well. Magearna is another one of those, welp, here you go types of Pokemon, but with all the fun removed. Magearna's backstory isn't even mentioned in-game, with all the exposition being left to the 19th Pokemon movie, Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel. And for all we know, that might not even be canon. I mean really, what location or NPC in Alola has any relevance to Magearna? I'll give you a hint, there isn't. And this is another big issue. Since the games are paying almost no attention to mythical Pokemon, they're just becoming a bigger burden on the movies. The worst offender of this is none other than Marshadow. Although I personally think Marshadow is one of the coolest mythical Pokemon in recent years, this Pokemon is arguably the worst handled mythical of all time. Like Magearna, there is nothing in the context of Pokemon Sun and Moon to explain Marshadow's existence besides the Pokedex. And even then, the Pokedex barely explains anything about Marshadow, just stating how it lurks in the shadows of people. So how does that make it any different from Gengar or Darkrai? Marshadow does have this cool Z-Power energy that powers him up and changes him into this green form called Zenith Marshadow, but we don't really know anything else about it. And odds are we never will, because Marshadow's moment in the sun is already over. All the potential this Pokemon had was just glossed over as Game Freak went to the next Pokemon waiting in line. I hoped the Pokemon the movie I Choose You would help explain the purpose of Marshadow, but sadly Marshadow is only really in the movie as advertisement. They try to connect Marshadow to the legend of Ho-Oh and the Rainbow Hero, but honestly it makes little to no sense. And most people agree that Marshadow was probably the worst part of an otherwise good movie. And this is what worries me the most about Zeraora. There's no sign in the coding of Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon that suggests that Zeraora will get its own event, or that players will be able to actually catch Zeraora. Odds are Zeraora will just be handed over to us by a generic Pokemon Center delivery man with little to no details explaining why this Pokemon should be mythical in the first place. It saddens me that what was once the most interesting group of Pokemon has become the most boring and stale in only a few years. There is zero skill in obtaining a mythical Pokemon today. You don't catch them, you don't go on an extensive side quest, you just get them and don't ask any questions. It's ironic that mythical Pokemon are probably the most common things you'll find collecting dust in any trainer's PC box. Most mythical Pokemon can't even be used at the World Championships, Battle Tree, Battle Maison, or any other battle facility. Quite literally, their only purpose for existing nowadays is to cross-promote between the games and the movies. And honestly, I think this makes the experience worse for both. Fans of the Pokemon games don't want these uninspired creatures without any backstory attached to them that they can't even use, and fans of the Pokemon movies don't want the focus of the film to be blurred by a Pokemon that shouldn't be there in the first place. So how do we fix this issue? Really, it's not that hard. How about hide the mythical Pokemon in some extensive post-game side quest that requires a lot of hard thinking to complete? Or add a DLC patch every year or so that puts in a long mission that leads to a mythical Pokemon. And as this mission continues, you learn more about the lore of this mythical Pokemon. But JPR, I hear you typing in the comments, Pokemon is for kids and they will want to complete something so hard for a single Pokemon. Okay, well, if the kid lacks the motivation to complete the trial, then tough. I mean, heck, we were all kids when we figured this mess out, and most of us didn't have the internet as a resource at the time. Honestly, I think this whole catering to kids thing is getting ridiculous. Yes, Pokemon is primarily a kids game, I understand that, but we can't assume that every kid nowadays that plays Pokemon is lazy and stupid. We have to give them some credit. If we did assume that, then battles like Red and Ultra Necrozma wouldn't exist. So make it challenging to get a rare Pokemon, like it should be. And like I said earlier, if they spaced out these missions as DLC, it could still fall in line with the movies and they would get that cross-promotion that they want. Also, it's not hard to make mythical Pokemon usable in competitions and battle facilities. Most of them aren't nearly as broken as other Pokemon that are allowed, so what's the point in banning them? This is a big issue with a small fix, and that's probably the most infuriating part of it. Obviously, we can never fully restore the wonder and mysteriousness of mythical Pokemon because of how prominent the internet and guides are today, but we can at least try to make these Pokemon a little bit interesting. But anyway, that's just my take on the whole situation. Do you agree that mythical Pokemon have become a joke in recent years, or do you think that they should be easy for everyone to obtain? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.